Hello, good afternoon everyone, and welcome to another Art for All group. My name is Lucy and I'm a creative artist working at St Christopher's Hospice. This week I'd like to continue talking a little bit about political artwork, as April is the anniversary of first British Prime Minister being elected back in 1721 in April. And this week I'd like to go across the pond to the work of an American artist called Stacey Lee Weber, and she has embroidered money for more than a decade. She started as a way to question the value of work by meticulously stitching patterns onto worthless $1 bills. The latest incarnation, the insurrection bills, is a response to the US's febrile political climate. And Weber is a trained metalsmith who lives and works in an old industrial building in Philadelphia. And she doesn't feel like the end of the Trump era has changed much. And she says the political situation in the US is not peaceful. The country is completely divided politically. And here is some of her work. So we've gone up to $20 now. And you can see the rainbow coming out of the White House. Abraham Lincoln wearing a balaclava. The White House burning. Being bricked up. And here you can see it's almost completely bricked up, and even the "In God We Trust" is being bricked up. And I suppose we think of art often as kind of really big pieces that go on gallery walls, but actually it can be the smallest things that fit in your pocket, like these notes that are transformed into something completely different by embroidery. And embroidery is something I think we don't often think of in terms of kind of fine artwork, because maybe it's very much associated with women and with repairing fabric and kind of making clothes, with the very practical things, but actually it can be transformed into something far more conceptual. And also I think we've seen over the past year how many people have taken up sewing and knitting and crocheting as a response to really difficult situations. Maybe there's something about working with your hands, working at the small things, that make it easier for us to process and cope with the bigger things. So this is one person's response to big political events that we can't control, but we can control this small thing and make a statement. A fence in front of the White House. And in a slightly different note, I also thought of an art activity that people might like to have a go at this week. And it's inspired by an exhibition that will be happening in Bath. And the art activity is My Kid Could Have Done That. So, 5-year-old Astrid Cooper and her father are putting together My Kid Could Have Done That, an exhibition which will display the work of about 15 contemporary artists in the Edge Art Centre in Bath, all of it a collaboration between the artist and their young child or children. This is Astrid Cooper, the curator of the art show, photographed by Will Cooper, her father. And Will Cooper says, there is a layer of the show which is joy and fun and messiness and eccentricity and lack of rules that come from making stuff with your kids. But underneath that, there is an important, I think, socio-political conversation about what we expect creative people to be able to do, what we expect parents and predominantly mothers to do. So how do we make creative work with our children, with all the demands of life? And it's even more difficult for parents and grandparents to kind of have their own creative lives when you're immersed in childcare. But for all of us, how do we find outlets to be creative? And perhaps we can, well, I think we can definitely learn something from children's attitudes to creativity. So the task is, with your children, if they're still primary school age, your grandchildren, or if you don't have grandchildren, young people with whom you have a close family connection who are of primary school age or younger, the task is to create an art piece collaboratively. So with this, you have to aim for a true collaboration and not just the child putting a finishing brushstroke to the adult's paintings. So have a conversation with your grandchild or your child, or grandniece, nephew, and think about what they might like to create, and think about what you might like to create. See where things cross over. Think about what you're both interested in, or maybe things that neither of you are interested in. You want to make artwork about that. Things that make you both happy or make you both sad. And think about what kind of artwork you might like to make. And it might be that you want to do painting or drawing. It might be you want to do photography. It might be you want to make a sculpture. It could be anything. And some ideas here. You might like to make a folding paper figure. So what you need is paper, pencils, and you fold the paper into 4 equal parts. And you fold it up so that you can only see one part at a time. And the first person draws a head, the next person draws the shoulders and arms, and then you go back to the first person, they draw the tummy, the next person draws the legs, and you draw the feet, and you end up with this figure that is a collaboration between the two of you. So you might want to do something like that, and it's very easy to do. You might want to draw each other's portraits. Or you might want to use each other's work as an inspiration. And on the left here is a sketch by a toddler, and their parent has taken the sketch and not drawn over it, but redrawn the lines, and then turned these lines into another image. So it's become a tree with a bookcase inside it, and a little armchair and lights to read by. So you have the original image and then the new image next to it. And this is a version of the doodle game. So one of you draws a squiggle and the other one tries to turn it into something. So you might see a squiggle like this and somebody sees a tree here, or you might see a love heart, or you might see somebody wearing a hat. So just that's another way of collaborating in artwork. Or you might like to go on a social distance photography journey together. Maybe you go on a walk and you have a photography journey together. So you both take photos and then compare your photos at the end. And ultimately it's up to you and your collaborator. So I look forward to seeing what you come up with and what it means to you to say, my kid could have done that. And I look forward to seeing you all next week, and all the very best until then. Thank you. Goodbye.